Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome. You have tuned into episode number 568 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And this is our short topics episode. So some news you can use, some interesting topics, and some things to discuss, and we'll get to that very shortly. But first, we'll introduce ourselves. For the on assignment, Cheryl, W5MOO. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so we are here, and we have topics.
Yeah.
You dug around, found some topics. I dug around, found some topics. We have a couple of little commentary topics at the end, which are little throwaway things, but things that we want to mention because one references something we've already talked about, and one references something we will talk about. So let's stick around for that towards the end of the show. But before we get to those, let's get to our regular topics. We always start with amateur radio, unless we have a lead topic, and we don't actually have a lead topic. So I will go. I don't know how the order on this is going to work tonight. I guess we'll just figure it out as we go, and I'll start with the first one here, since this is one of the ones I threw in, and I hope that I've edited copy so these read, because I'm not entirely sure. Especially the third one, but it's another one that I'm reading. So if it sounds awkward, it wasn't AI. It was me stupid. All right. So, you know what? I think we're underutilizing AI on this show. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's a thought for
should take the entire show notes and just shove it in and get some new words and see if we can sound like special.
All right. Topics for another day. Anyway, the first topic we have here is IP400 network project announced. Designed by Martin Alcock VE6VH with support from Alberta Digital Radio Communications Society, the ADRCS folks, the IP400 network project is designed to enhance amateur radio repeaters. IP400 aims to bring digital voice modes, data transfers, messaging, and a data networking layer that links repeaters together in RF, something that Yaesu already does. So I'm going to assume this is going to be more generalized ideas. This is a fleshing out anyway at the moment. Let's see. The latest issue of Zero Retries features in-depth write-ups of IP400, including a message from VE6 Victor Hotel himself, outlining the history and vision of the project. Quote from VE6VH, "We have a ground floor opportunity to develop our own mesh network in the 420 to 450 megahertz band that can be used for many different applications, the limit of which is the imagination alone and physics." Let's put it in physics. The first step is to get a simple chat and beaconing application running to experiment with the technology. From there, we can layer on other features and frame types and then consider moving into the repeater world. To give the project a name, it has been dubbed IP400, the Intelligent Not Internet Protocol. Whatever. That's an end to that quote. Those interested in the project can join the IP400groups.io mailing list. A GitHub repository of initial software has also been established, and you can check out the Zero Retries article with the link in the show notes, and also there are links to the Groups.io group, the GitHub for the software, and the IP400 project itself. So, not a lot of meat on those bones, but obviously it's a new project, and we'll be hearing more about it, I'm sure. So,
yeah, interesting.
I wonder what the 400's about.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I have
Maybe
no
because
idea.
they're targeting the 70 centimeter band or something like that. They decided to stick with
That's a totally reasonable guess.
just
So,
a guess.
absolutely. All right, so you're up. You can handle the next one.
Oh, okay. This one is HamSci announces expansion of personal space weather station activities. HamSci, the Ham Radio Science Citizen Investigation, has announced an expanded weekly teleconference. The HamSci PSWS Operations Telecon, formerly the Grape Telecon, will now be covering the ever expanding HamSci Personal Space Weather Station, the PSWS or PUSWIS network. Since inception, the more than 50 Grape stations remain actively reporting data, including most who operated during the 2024 annular and total solar eclipses. The new telecon will cover the operational aspects, scoping the network, project timelines, data collection topics, network monitoring and maintenance, etc., of HamSci's DASI funded projects. And DASI is Distributed Array of Scientific Instruments. It will be a joint effort of the University of Scranton, Case Western Reserve University, and the University of Alabama, with the additional contributions from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. The PUSWIS, I'm sure they're going to love that, operations meetings will be held on Thursdays at 1000 Eastern Time. Zoom details are on the HamSci Get Involved webpage under HamSci Weekly Telecons. The ham radio community is welcome to join in, learn about, and contribute to the project. More details will be revealed on March 14th or 15th. Beware the Ides of March at the 2025 HamSci Workshop. Attend in person or virtually to hear more about this project and how to get involved. And this came from QRZ.com. How about that? Total legit news source.
Well, I think it was a press release by the HamSci guys over on QRZ.
Yeah. Cool. That sounds interesting. I've never attended any of their conference calls, but I'm interested in some of their work.
Yeah, HamSci, interesting organization. I've not been involved with any of their stuff either, but I am kind of curious about this since I saw it in the news or heard about it on our show. So, yeah, we're going to have to check that out and see how interesting it might be. Next amateur radio show is the one that I kind of threw together, and hopefully it reads okay. So
good thing you're reading it.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm glad I'm hitting this one because and this is where I thought I could have had like AI kind of like reinterpret this text, but here we go.
Yeah, put it in a different person, right?
Yeah, and this involves your favorite guy, Frank K4F.
Frank, we love Frank.
Frank is great. So the case of the shrinking technician class. My friend and colleague, this is written by K0NR, by the way. It's from his point of view. My friend and colleague Frank, K4FMH, has published several recent articles on trends in amateur radio, licensing, and demographics, and also one about the restructuring and the goings-on over at the ARL. So he's been busy talking about stuff. This one, the decline in ARRL membership and market share, has some interesting data and observations about licensing trends in the U.S. It also comments on the ARRL membership trends, which I just said. I am focusing on the decline in the number of FCC amateur radio licenses in the past few years. As Frank points out, breaking this out by license class is illuminating. Unsurprisingly, the novice and advanced class licenses are experiencing a slow, steady decline. This probably represents a natural decline of a set of licenses when no new licenses were issued. Advanced class licenses declined 4.7 per year from 2019 to 2024. Some of these licensees may be upgrading to a higher class, but anecdotally, I think this is a small effect. Another factor is that the FCC implemented an application fee. See, there's a script. And I don't think that was me. I think that was in there. The FCC implemented a $35 application fee in April of 2022. However, this came after the technician decline started. Although the $35 fee is arguably reasonable, I expect it to decrease the number of licenses and licensees. It is well known that the radio amateur population is skewed towards older individuals. Oh, somebody else thought this too. I think we need to send them some hate mail. Mostly older men. if anybody else has had this insight. Aging does cause people to leave the hobby over time. It's a nice way to say people are dying. Without saying people are dying.
Yeah. Which he does say.
Either by death. Okay, so he does actually throw it in there. I thought he was being coy. Or by reduced physical and mental ability. Oh, let's not pull any punches here. This is probably part of the picture, but why would it only affect the technician numbers? And I put in here that there is considerably more information between these articles, the ones written by K0NR and the ones written by Frank K4FMH. So you really, if you want to get the lowdown and all the stuff that they've discussed, it's many pages of read, not just a paragraph of text here. So I've linked to the relevant information. So if you want to dive into this a little deeper, feel free to do that and just click the links on the show notes. So I don't know if I have any like commentary on this. I think it's obvious what's happening, and there's a lot more in the article that could probably be discussed, but it would probably be like a whole episode worth of, just psychology and sociology and blah 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 blah. So
yeah.
better if listeners just go out and read it.
Yeah, there's a lot of data in those. I think Frank did the original study for some kind of report that he provided, paid report. So a lot of this information is all from that study that he did. So it's definitely interesting. I haven't looked at the numbers themselves, so I'm not sure if maybe the general class is going higher because most people tend to upgrade instantly from technician to general. But I guess they would still get the license unless they happen to take both tests on the same day. Then they would go straight to general without ever actually getting issued the technician license.
I think it behooves amateurs, especially in the United States, just to go to general because the gains from that upgrade are so astronomical, I guess. I mean, you can do so much more with a general than you can with a tech. So I think, I don't know if the data actually showed that. I didn't read through the graphs and stuff, but it would seem to me that the decline in tech class is just because you don't have the privileges, for one thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to some open source discussion. And that means, I guess, you're up for the first of these topics. So we'll let you hit it.
Yeah, sure. This is OpenDeck. This is the first thing I found. OpenDeck is a desktop application for using the Stream controller devices like the Elgato Stream Deck on Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. OpenDeck supports plugins made for the original Stream Deck SDK, allowing many plugins made for the Elgato software ecosystem to be used, or the OpenAction API. OpenDeck supports Elgato Stream Deck and some other hardware on all three major desktop platforms. Only Elgato hardware is officially supported. So here's a couple things from the GitHub page. Why use OpenDeck? Well, because you can use Stream Deck plugins. OpenDeck supports the majority of the Stream Deck plugins that users of the Elgato ecosystem are already familiar with, unlike other third-party softwares, which are much more limited. Example, Stream Deck UI and Stream Controller and Boat Swain, and etc. It's cross-platform. OpenDeck supports Linux alongside Windows and Mac OS. Mac OS users also benefit from the switching from the first-party Elgato software, as OpenDeck can only run plugins only built for Windows on Linux and Mac OS, thanks to Wine. Additionally, profile files are easily movable between platforms with no changes to them necessary. It's feature-packed, from multi-actions to toggle actions to switching profiles when you switch apps and brightness control. OpenDeck has all the features you'd expect from the Stream controller software. It's open source. OpenDeck source code is licensed under the GNU GPL, allowing anyone to view it and improve it for feature, stability, privacy, or security reasons. Most plugins are open source as well. It is written in Rust. So here's our favorite crustacean language. The Rust programming language, which OpenDeck is built on alongside of TypeScript, is known for its performance, safety, and resulting code quality. And this came from GitHub.
All right, very good. Elgato, the cat.
Yeah, that's a fancy, multi-button device that you can trigger actions and everything else. You see a lot of streamers using it to flip between stuff. And I think there's mainly been some less than adequate solutions in the Linux space, not quite as good as what is provided with the Windows software for that device. So this is good. Good to see. It probably opens up the availability to use the Stream Deck's quite rapidly in that environment. Although the use of wine too kind of also, not always the best solution, but I can see the need to do that on some proprietary or some compiled plugins that are only in like DLL land and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I've seen the Stream Deck. I've thought about getting one. I don't really have a use case for it, but I mean, whatever. It has buttons that push and light up and are like in cool colors and stuff. So, and I guess it can automate some tasks. I could use it. I could use partly as a soundboard. You could push a button and but probably overkill for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably more for people that are using OBS and stuff like that need to, switch scene transitions and do other things all at the same time. Yeah, I see a lot of use for it in that kind of aspect for it, but for like pure podcasting, like what we're doing, it's a bit overkill.
It would probably come in super handy for when I stream like the shows out here, because I do a lot of scene transition stuff. And I do use OBS, so it might be handy for that.
Might be something for you to look at then.
Yeah, as long as it's not like too stupid expensive. I don't think they're that bad though.
No, I don't think so. You can get like the quickie, like I think 8. They have like a smaller 8-button one or something like that, or 6-button one, and then they have a one that has lots of buttons. So.
All right, very good. Well, nice to see some additional software availability across platforms for the Stream Decks. Very nice. Next, I'm going to hopefully be able to get down through this, because this is one of the ones that you just sort of chunked in there. So,
yeah, that's written in my perspective.
Oh, well, okay. I'll do the last one then. You can do this one.
Okay, yeah. This one is a Logical Ardor. And I kind of found this when I was looking at a post in r/Linux audio over there on the good old Reddits about making music in Linux without instruments. And I ran across this reply that spoke about an interesting project. So this is Logical Ardor, and what this is a project it's currently in development to give Ardor the functionality similar to GarageBand or Logic Pro out of the box, using Ardor's Lua scripting interface, as well as some Python bash scripting and some FOSS plugins. The goals for the system are to have a guided menu system for creating different track types, as well as changing instruments and plugins and presets. Have lots of MIDI audio loops available for your disposal. Ardor already has this sort of out of the box. Instruments will have access to a full library of instruments, instrument sounds out of the box, and will be easily available to switch between the different instruments. Drums, you'll have a variety of drum sets available, the ability to easily switch between them. You'll be able to have drum loops automatically follow an audio loop. For guitars, you'll have a ton of presets for guitar bass sounds available out of the box. Be easily switch between the guitar sounds that will be able to customize your sound. Vocals, you'll be able to easily switch between different vocal presets. Auto-tune, so for all those that can't sing, you can auto-tune yourself so you can sound like T-Pain. So it'll follow the key of your project. I'd also be able to transpose audio by key and scale. This is quite useful when you want to change the pitch of an audio loop for like C major or F major or D flat, my favorite one. Be able to time stretch an audio loop to fixed BPM. You also be able to view and edit MIDI regions with musical scores. Other functionalities not found in GB. Let's see. Have all instruments, plugins, loops, dependencies, and defaults installed out of the box by an install shell script, or probably a Flatpak or something like that, I'm sure. Have an easy-to-use sampler, and have a help section built into the menu system that takes you to YouTube help videos. Hey, how about that? For the project, as well as written documentation for other resources for music production. The additional functionality that has been implemented in this project that GarageBand does not currently have, so this is some of the new stuff that you can do as well, is there's a session player. And this would be similar to the session player found in Logic Pro 11, where you can have arpeggiated instruments, the ones that go randomly up and down octaves, following a chord progression. And it works similar to the drummer, where the instruments can follow an audio loop. You can also follow an audio from a MIDI Lua script that comes with an Ardor to follow the audio loop as well. I know if you're not into music stuff, this is probably way too much, but this is pretty cool, actually. Random chord generator. There's a random bassline generator, a voice to MIDI using modified version of Ardor's audio to MIDI Lua script. There's some drum sequencing in there as well. Like GarageBand for iOS does have some drums, does have a drum sequencer. GarageBand for Mac does not. So that's a distinguishing point there. They'll also have unlimited tracks and customizability. unlike GarageBand, Ardor is a full, DAW, a digital audio workstation. So yeah, this source is over. I have it linked to the Reddit post, and I also have the Ardor's GitHub linked in the show notes. And it looks like an interesting build on top of Ardor, which is still pretty. It's a pretty thick DAW to use.
Yeah, it's definitely full featured. I have played around with Ardor in the past, and I would like to get into some more music production stuff and actually get like guitars down off the wall and actually encode some bass tracks and stuff and see if I can put something together on top of them. So this looks like something I would play with.
Cool.
All right. Well, we do have another topic in open source, and that is the SDL3 is officially released. SDL3 is the software, or sorry, not software. It's always software, right? SDL is Simple Direct Media Layer. It is a cross-platform library designed to make it easy to write multimedia software, such as games and emulators. Bill was apparently on an open source audio kick today.
Yeah.
you were just drowning in Reddit threads. That's what it was.
I know. I was living in Reddit.
Here are some of the highlights that are new in SDL 3.0. It has extremely good documentation, so saith themselves. A ton of effort writing and revising the API reference. Always nice to have a well-documented API. Makes things much easier for the coders. Example programs to get you started. That's always helpful too. More consistent API naming conventions. Everything is consistent across the API instead of different subsystems taking different approaches. That's nice. Main callbacks, optionally run your program from callbacks instead of from the main loop. GPU API, access to modern 3D rendering and GPU compute in cross-platform methodology. There's a dialog API, access to the file system dialogues. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I saw file system and then file system.
Yeah, there's two different ones. System file.
Yeah. File system API for simple directory management and globbing, access to topic-specific user folders. There's a storage API for platform-specific storage, a camera API, which, you know what, that's for cameras. There's a pen API. Say it with me. It's for pens. Logical audio devices. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Well, actually, it's kind of it's kind of unusual in the open source world for things to name themselves things that are actually kind of intuitive, because that doesn't often happen.
Yeah, let's go to the kernel.
Audio streams handle buffering, converting, resampling, mixing, channel mapping, pitch, and gain. Bind to an audio device and go. Difficult, yeah. Difficult to read this stupid thing. Default audio devices. SDL3 will automatically manage migrating to new physical hardware as devices are plugged in, ripped out, or changed. Interesting. Most people don't rip their audio devices out.
Well, if you rip it out of the jack, you pull your guitar too fast.
Well, that's happened. There's a properties API for fast, flexible dictionaries, name and value pairs. Process API for responding processes. Oh, their logical and consistency is just astounding. There's color space support for surfaces and rendering and color or multiple color spaces. The color API can support any data type. SDL2 only handle text. SDL3 can handle whatever you have. Better keyboard inputs for all your key press needs. Customizable virtual keyboards on iOS and Android. High DPI support is dramatically improved over SDL2. You know what happens whenever I have a high DPI monitor? I immediately just turn it off.
Can't read it anyways. The print's too small.
Exactly right. Just go straight to 1080p and everything is happy. App metadata API is the last thing on this list for letting SDL report things about your app correctly, like in the About dialog on macOS, etc., and much, much more. We already talked about too much, and there is much, much more. Yes. Source for this is GitHub, and of course a link will be in the show notes if you want to check out SDL version 3.
Yeah, a lot of things are built on top of SDL2, so it'll be just interesting to see how this progression to the new version gets out there and what kind of transition it takes. So inside the GitHub, you can also see the transition notes, how to get your application from SDL2 to SDL3, because there, obviously will be some I'm assuming breaking changes. So I didn't go through the full list, but yeah, there's a lot of changes in it, and this is a significant dot release, so or point release, or what do you call it? Dot release? I don't know.
Well, it's a major release, right? Because
major
it's
release, yeah,
1, 2,
major.
3. There you go.
Yeah, major. That's what I was looking for, the right word, and I couldn't find it. It was there somewhere.
All right, very good. So that brings us to Linux in the Ham Shack, which is our namesake. And Bill wants to talk a little bit about the topic we talked about last time, which is Jekyll. So
yeah, you asked me a question. You asked me a question about the responsiveness or responsive web pages, and I think I maybe glossed over it because I listened to the podcast afterward because it's always fun to do that. And I don't think I really got into that so much, but yeah, I mean, your responsive web pages, I didn't know what aspect you were asking about it for, because generally your CSS library that you choose, whether that I was choosing Bootstrap, can handle changing the size of the browser, so the web page will transform properly when it goes into a mobile browser, which has a much narrower width, and collapse the menu into the hamburger thing and everything else. That's all pretty auto magic with that. So, but I didn't know if you were talking specifically about that, or you were talking about interactivity with other things, doing gets and stuff like that from APIs, which you can also do by including something like Alpine JS or possibly even HTMX. All that stuff does actually work well with a static site generator. So you can pull API responses from external APIs and stuff like that, or pull data from RSS feeds and stuff. So just so you know, you can do a lot of things with the static site generator. It's not all about being static. It's just about maintaining the static side of your website in a more manageable fashion. So I don't know if that answered your question a bit better that you had during the podcast, or if you remember asking that question.
I do remember discussing responsiveness, and I was talking pretty much about the UI responsiveness and video display responsiveness. So yeah, you got that.
Okay, yeah. So as long as you choose, if you roll your own CSS, and you've got to be very, mindful of, creating your viewport and everything else, so that the web page will, properly collapse itself down and resize itself based upon the display itself.
All right, cool. That's all I was getting to. I wasn't getting into API calls and stuff, API calls and all that fancy schmancy stuff. So
good. Well, I know I didn't talk about using an external library to do that, but you can easily go and pull very dynamic stuff from APIs and stuff like that quite easily into your Jekyll site.
Oh, very good. This is definitely something I'm going to have to be approaching. I've at work, I've been dealing with WordPress. We are maintaining many
yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah, and I know you're in the same boat, and you've already started your migration process, so we'll have to see where we go from there. There's someone else at work that deals with the marketing and the public facing websites and stuff, so I just have to handle the back end of WordPress. So assuming that something else is chosen, it will probably not be my choice. It will just be my choice, or my responsibility to make sure it works whenever it's chosen. So, or we'll just use WordPress.
Until it explodes, right?
Too, right.
Yeah. Start cutting a check to somebody, right?
Right. Well, the data center catches fire. It may just be WordPress. All right. So yeah, I just threw in a thing about Caribou Light SDR hat. This is a thing that works with Raspberry Pis. I think the crowdfunding event happened 2 years ago. I think it was in 2022 sometime, where this thing sort of happened. And I don't have a lot of details about it, but I saw several references to it recently. And apparently it's an SDR transceiver, not a receiver. Low cost one. I don't have any details on it, but I wanted to do some more research and then actually either do a deep dive on it, or have it as a quick topic to discuss on a future short topics episode. But I wanted to make people aware that the Caribou Light SDR hat exists if they want to go research it on their own and check it out before we get around to talking about it, because it sounds like a cool technology. The link to the blog post that I saw about it actually had a redirect loop in it, so I couldn't get the data, which is why I'm just sort of putting in a little shim topic here instead of actually discussing it. But it will be coming up on a relatively soon future show. So if anybody wants to check out the Caribou Light SDR, you now know if you didn't know already.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, that brings us down to the end of our topics for the evening. So we're on to announcements and feedback. I didn't have any feedback, although I did see there was a post on one of the YouTube videos that we got in feedback, and it was like, basically the feedback was something like, what the hell is this? Or something. I kind of thought it was trolly / jokey / somebody just posted on a video, so I didn't want to reference it and try and answer the question. But it's there. So
what the hell? Oh yeah, that's funny. On the Weekender.
Yeah. So I have no idea.
From Ian Gangsta 3149. Nice.
So in answer to the question, what the hell? I mean, I really have none because I have no context with which to answer. So there you go. But anyway, I wanted to make sure we mentioned that you can help out the show financially by supporting us on Patreon or PayPal or by buying some merch. We would love to sell some merch, and I'm working on getting new merch. So just want to put that out there before the outro rolls out, because I'm pretty sure no one listens to that, even though all of this information is actually in there. So if you would, just check out the website, lhspodcast.info. Links to all this stuff, of course, is there. Buy some merch if you want to. If there's something you want to see as merch, please let us know. Email us at info@lhspodcast.info. I'd like to have some ideas. I have my ideas of my own, but I'd be interested to hear what people actually are interested in. So there's that. And I'm going to let Bill handle the little bit of social media stuff we have here.
Sure. Yeah, this is our subscribers and supporters and live participants. And we have no new subscribers or Patreons. We did get a free Patreon, Bill, W3FRB. Welcome, Bill. Facebook, nobody joined. Twitter, X, nobody joined. Instagram, nothing. Mastodon, we had KL5, Mike join. Over on YouTube, we had C. David Burgess join. On Discord, we had Shane, KJ5JJX, Electric 2943, Old Man of the Mountain, KD4WOV, Fiat Guy 85, Ran-Daddy. Over on Blue Sky, nobody joined, and nobody joined the mailing list. And over in our live chat, which there seems to be some chatting going on, we have Steve, KJ5T, Dan, KB6NU, Bike Me is in there, Woody, KC1VOP, and a Mike, K6GT, joined us a little late, but he's here nonetheless.
Now, KC1VOP goes by Grinch. Did he authorize you to tell people what his
I looked it up. It's public information. Sorry. That's the thing. When you have a call sign, you can't hide it anymore. If you'd like to be called the Grinch, I will just put Grinch on there. That's fine. Just tell us in the feedback. We will not mess that up.
Yep, it's totally Bill's fault. I don't want to hear anything about it.
I doxed him.
Speaking of doxing, this actually has nothing to do with doxing, but I was worked winter field day a little bit over the weekend, not as much as I wanted to. I kind of had a lot going on, and honestly, I got a little bit bored with it. I wanted to do like an hour's worth of work today. I did most of my work yesterday and late last night / early this morning. But I see that Mike K6GTE is in the chat, and I just wanted to say that I use Not 1mm, of course, for Winter Field Day, and it's awesome. I love it. Everyone should.
Not 1mm for the win.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, he says it didn't crash. No, it did not crash. It actually worked quite well. And I had my link into my Rig Control Daemon up the whole time on the FT710, and it worked flawlessly the whole time. And I even had to do like database edits. So I did like some right click edits, and I did some in situ edits where you just click on the columns, kind of like making changes to an Microsoft Access database. So if anybody remembers how that used to work, Not 1mm in the call log actually works in a similar fashion, and it everything went swimmingly, no issues at all. So
sweet.
So thanks, Mike, for a great program, Not 1mm. If you're doing any kind of contest logging, you should definitely check it out. And that's not 1mm, not the other thing. So, all right. With that, we have come down to the end of the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all of our supporters who help to keep the lights on. We really appreciate that as well. Please buy some merch if you want to help support the show in that way and get something in return for your money other than us just thanking you. And with that, we'll go ahead and close down episode number 568 of Linux in the Ham Shack. And we all hope you have a great week, and we'll catch you the next time around for our Weekender. And with that, we're out of here. So for the on assignment, Cheryl W5MOO, I'm signing off for Linux in the Ham Shack. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954776469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.